if you were online from the years of like, let's say 2014 to like 2022 or 3-ish, then you would know that the entire right-wing political project was built on spreading the idea that we are the believers in free speech and those liberals and lefties are censorious little authoritarians who hate free speech. And you would hear one version or another of this argument roughly 700, 900, 15,000 fucking times on a daily basis. You had entire channels that were basically like anti-SJW, which stands for Social Justice Warrior, so anti-social justice warrior channels, where they would beat up on the left because, oh, Ben Shapiro wanted to give a speech on this college campus, and there was a petition that said, we don't want him here, and Ann Coulter tried to give a speech on that college campus, and they protested her coming, and Milo Yiannopoulos tried to give a speech on this other campus, and the lefty said, how dare you, we want you out of here because you're making people unsafe. And again, they built a whole movement on this idea that we are the most American, we are the most based and down to earth, because we don't care what you say, you can be as offensive as you want. We have a First Amendment. We have free speech protections. And so go ahead, be offensive, and we'll defend you in principle. We don't even have to agree with what you're saying. We will defend you because we're defending the higher principle of freedom of speech. And so you had all these channels built on this notion, the Dave Rubins and the Ben Shapiros and the fucking Sargon of Akkad, if you guys remember him. It was all you hear 24/7, just nonstop. That's the point they would make over and over and over. Well, a point I made all the time, even back then, is that these people are full of shit. They don't actually mean it. They don't actually care about free speech. They just want themselves to be the censors, right? It's not that in principle they're for free speech. It's that we don't like when the left asserts themselves and maybe tries to deplatform a speaker. We want to be the ones who control the dialogue and the discourse. And I knew that their stance was bullshit even back then, because we had, for example, these things called anti-BDS laws at the state level, anti-boycott, divestment, and sanctions laws, which basically made it so you can't get any government money if you support not boycotting Israel, basically, I guess is the best way to say it. You can, if you support boycotting Israel, then sorry, but you can't get any government money, even if it's like hurricane relief money, for example. That was one thing, I think it was like in Houston, that they passed something that said if you support boycotting Israel, you can't get hurricane relief money. So you got all these anti-BDS laws that are out there, and they didn't say a fucking word about them. You have all these other laws in Republican states that made it like illegal to protest in some respects, and they didn't fucking bat an eyelash at it. Ron DeSantis signed some law where if like a protester gets in front of your car, you can legally run them over. And they didn't say, well, hold on here, we're for free speech, we're on the side of the protester. No, they supported it. Well, now, any sort of remnants that remained of this idea that they're the free speech people, it is so dead and gone as to be laughable. So let me show you this. This is some new information that just came out. Branko Marcetic says this: at least 600 Americans lost jobs for saying stuff about Charlie Kirk, including 50 academics and university administrators. By contrast, 22 academics were fired in 2020, 160 total fired for pro-Palestine views, making the Kirk crackdown the most extreme form of cancel culture so far. And he links to an article that lays this out clearly. The Charlie Kirk Purge by Raphael Satter and AJ Vissens. And they go into detail about this. And basically the point here is, even the height of what the right-winger said was left-wing cancel culture, there were fewer actual victims than what we just witnessed when it comes to Charlie Kirk. So let me also remind you, did some of these people say things that were like actually kind of offensive? Sure. But there were also a lot of people who just like directly quoted Charlie and put it online. Because he said a lot of things that were kind of yikesy in the aftermath of what happened to him, right? Like when he said, I'm okay with some gun deaths because we got to protect the other rights in the Constitution, so I'm okay with some people dying every year from guns. Well, of course people are going to fucking pull that up after you get murked, after you get shot. Like, duh, that's going to happen. There was a bunch of other stuff, too, that they quoted it, put it out there, no extra commentary added, fired, lost their jobs, given the scarlet letter, because God forbid you say something that's politically incorrect in a moment like that. It literally got to the point where you're not even allowed to make a joke. You're not even allowed to disagree with things Charlie had said in the past. They tried to deify him in a way where if you utter any peep of disagreement, you're basically Satan reincarnate, and you need to lose your job. There needs to be consequences. They want to make you fucking homeless, make it so you can't pay the bills, make it so that, you get screwed over. And so just, that's it, man. That's the death knell. That's the nail in the coffin. The idea was always complete and utter claptrap. It was total fucking horseshit. They never cared about free speech because, like I said, it used to be, hey, even if you're offensive, we might not agree with what you're saying, but we'll defend to the death your right to say it. And they would literally give examples of, offensive jokes. We're fine with those. Well, here's offensive jokes. But as soon as it's not directed at trans people or gay people or immigrants or Muslims, as soon as it's not about a minority population, all of a sudden, look who's the snowflake now, right? Look who's the censorious little prick now. It's all very clear. It's all very straightforward. And so, look, I've maintained, throughout the whole thing, I've sort of maintained being pro-free speech. I think that's the actual left-wing position. And the reason I say that is, who has the power to censor? It's always the people with the actual power in society. It's always the elites, right? And so, being a lefty is, by definition, being an outsider and not an insider, being a have-not instead of a have. And so in that scenario, you need free speech rights to protect the oppressed. You need free speech rights to protect those speaking truth to power, right? And I maintain that all along, even when the right was pretending like they were pro-free speech. I always knew they were bullshit. I always knew it wasn't true. And now it's been proven beyond any reasonable doubt. Also, I should point out, notice how the right-wingers also said absolutely nothing when Trump was rounding up pro-Palestine college kids, whether they wrote an op-ed or participated in a protest. Trump was rounding up pro-Palestine college kids who were maybe here on a visa or a green card or whatever the fuck, and they were kicking them out of the country. They were deporting them. They also deported, I forget the exact number, but somewhere between 6 and 12 people they deported simply for making a joke about Charlie Kirk in the wake of his killing. So, this is without a doubt the most authoritarian regime that we've had in my lifetime, and I fear it's only going to get worse. And at the same time this is going on, remember, they're ushering in the Palantir era, led by Peter Thiel, who, of course, wants to create a blackmail file on all Americans and spy on Americans day in and day out. And so, God forbid you say anything against the regime. God forbid you make a joke they don't like. God forbid you have an anti-JD Vance meme, a funny meme in your phone. They might not let you in the country. That literally happened, by the way. Remember that? Somebody had one of those funny JD Vance memes in his phone and he got kicked out of the country. Remember that? So they're just getting started. They are just getting started with this dystopian, sci-fi, futuristic, hell world, authoritarian nonsense. And this was just the beginning. Charlie Kirk. It's also kind of ironic that here you have a guy who, in theory, was running around saying his main thing was free speech and open debate on college campuses. And then, in the wake of him being killed, 600 people lose their jobs over their free speech. There's an ultimate irony in that. But at the same time, Charlie Kirk, when he was alive, he created this list of, the teachers who they wanted fired. So even his whole virtue signaling thing about being pro-free speech, it fell apart under minimal scrutiny because why were you keeping these blacklists of here's professors that need to lose their fucking jobs and be fired? It's like Barry Weiss, who also pretends like she's pro-free speech. Meanwhile, what was she known for beforehand? She was known for trying to get pro-Palestine professors fired. So there's this weird irony of all these people who really cloak themselves in this notion of the First Amendment and the Constitution of free speech. They end up being the most censorious and the most authoritarian. And now here we are. Not a single right-winger, not a single fucking one, is going to speak out in defense of these 600 Americans who lost their fucking jobs for making jokes or saying offensive things about Charlie Kirk. Well, look, I'll be on the record now. God forbid anything were to happen to me. I don't want anybody to lose their job for being a prick in my in my death. Yes, a lot of people hate me. A lot of people hate any political commentator online. Some people are going to fucking hate you. That's like, you're signing up for that. It's par for the course, right? So I wouldn't want anybody to fucking lose their livelihood because they didn't like me and they said something rude, right? That being said, I hope I don't die. But anyway, really disturbing, really disgusting. And you get the sense they're not going to stop. They're going to keep going. You know, it's the same thing we just saw with this Christian idiot who wrote some stupid psychology paper where she said everything is because God, and she got a 0 on it. That was the grade she got. And then she cried discrimination. And then the assistant professor who graded her paper got suspended. And it's like, we can't live in this world where the right constantly rigs the rules and changes the game and plays the victim and ruins people's lives while screaming that they are the victim. We can't do that. We can't live in that kind of a world anymore. You know, we need to actually give a fuck about free speech, and we need to actually have academic standards that matter. And they're against all of those things. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.